AV in your ears, that's Ambush Being, giving you this audio visual down the most interesting street in the world. With my voice, Steve, Fascination Street. You already know, let's get it. When you whip in the Fascination Street, what do you...
Hey everybody, this is Simon Majumder, and you are listening to Fascination Street Podcast. Enjoy.
Yeah, AV in your ears, that's Ambush Being, giving you this audio visual down the most interesting street in the world. With my voice, Steve, Fascination Street. You already know, let's get it. When you whip in the Fascination Street, what do you...
Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is with the great Roger Mooking. Roger Mooking is a chef, a TV personality, an artist, a musician, and now an author. And we're going to talk about all of those things. If you live in Canada or are familiar with Canadian hip-hop music from the early to mid-90s, you may know him as MC Mystic from the Maximum Definitive. Or you may know him from Bass is Bass, another Canadian hip-hop band, which actually won a Juno Award. But most of you probably know him as host and personality on several culinary-based TV shows across Food Network Canada, Food Network America, The Food Channel, The Cooking Channel, all the channels. He even has a food show on Amazon Prime. In this episode, we talk about all of that. We talk about how Roger got into music. We talk about how Roger got into art, how he got into the culinary scene and then television, and why he's still doing all of those and progressing every day at being able to express the love and the curiosity to everybody around the world. We talk about his newest album, which is called Soundbites. It has a very cool concept, which I'm sure you're going to dig, and I do get to play my favorite track off that album a little bit later into the episode. We also talk about specifically some of his TV shows, including the show he was doing the first time I came across him. It's called Everyday Exotic, and the theme song is called You, Me, Us, off of his debut album, Soul Food. He lets me play that too because I love it so much, and he is such a good dude. Along the way, we talk about how he has been inspired and continues to inspire others through his art, through his music, through his new book called Curious Sounds, and it accompanies that new album. It is his first book. I have a hunch it won't be his last. And we even talk about his fairly recent purchase of a 13-acre property just outside of Toronto called Rocklands Market, where he hosts events, he teaches classes, he films shows, he hosts retreats, and not just culinary ones either. We're talking financial literacy, all of the things. And he is building communities all over the world. And this is my conversation with musician, artist, author, chef, and all-around good dude, Roger Mooking.
Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated.
Welcome to Fascination Street Podcast, Roger Mooking. How you doing today, man?
I'm good, man. How are you doing today?
I'm a little frazzled because I just had to have a stern talking to with my wife before I came in here to do this. She goes, "Who are you interviewing today?" And I said, "Roger Mooking." And she goes, "Ooh, oh my!" And I said, I said, "He's married, and so are you. So you just take it." Ladies and gentlemen, this is Roger Mooking. He is a man of many talents. You probably already know him, but if you don't, boy, are you going to be blown away by this dude. Roger, if it's cool with you, what I like to do is start from the beginning. It helps us understand how the guests got from where they were to where they are. So where were you born and raised, man? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Trinidad and Tobago in the West Indies. My family moved to Canada when I was 5 years old.
Why?
I think my dad kind of foresaw a kind of 20, 30-year trend of like what he thought was going to be corruption and stuff. He's like, look, I just don't see this going good in the next little while. So I'm going to move my kids out and my family and move them to Canada. So we moved to Canada when I was 5. And I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, which is just above Montana.
Go Oilers.
Yeah. Oilers. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I grew up in Edmonton during the Gretzky era. Gretzky, Messier, Curry, Glenn Anderson, like that whole crew.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing, man. And then I moved to Ontario in the 90s because I was pursuing an entertainment industry, you know.
Oh, nice. You are the third guest that I have had that has grown up in Edmonton.
Really?
Yeah, the first one, it might blow you away. I don't know, but Tommy Chong from Cheech and Chong.
He from Edmonton?
Mm-hmm.
Get the hell out.
Uh-huh. And we probably won't get to this later, so I'll tell you right now, you're in music. Check this out. Nobody knows this. Are you familiar with Diana Ross and the Supremes?
Yeah, of course.
Of
Yeah,
course. Well, they had a hit song called Does Your Mama Know About Us?
Okay.
And it was a hit song. It was with Motown. That was written by Tommy Chong.
I know on the low he used to do this, actually. I don't know why I know this, but I know this.
Before he met Cheech, he was signed with Motown. He was a guitarist for a band called Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers.
Oh, snap.
It's so wild.
Crazy.
And then the other guy that I interviewed, his name is Niels Rasmussen, and he is a musician as well from Edmonton. It's crazy. And then his dad is like some famous cartoonist for a cartoon we don't have down here.
Well, it's like all these Midwestern states, it's like cold. There's nothing to do for a lot of the time. So you kind of just hunker down, learn some kind of art, craft, music, play an instrument, or you make a lot of babies, or you like get addicted to meth. You know what I mean? Like it's one of the three things happen.
Yeah, you either get creative, you get babies, or you get meth. Nice. I love it.
What it's like, man,
Hopefully you have asked him, but why did your dad pick one of the coldest places on the planet from one of the more tropical places? Why did he go so cold when he went to Canada?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. When we came to Canada, my mother's like, okay, so you're going to bring me to this country. I want to see the country and I want to know where we're going to live, right? And I want to understand this place. So we actually took the train across the whole country from the Ottawa and Montreal area all the way to British Columbia on the West Coast, right? And when my parents saw Alberta, they loved it. There's big open sky, a lot of land. The economy was booming at the time. Interest rates were low. There was low taxes and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like the mini Texas of Canada. And so my dad's like, yo, this is a good place to go. He likes space and big sky and low cost to live in. So that's where we ended up.
Was there a big West Indies community there?
No, there was not. I think there was like 6 Black people in the whole province at that point. and there was like 2 kids and 2 parents of mine. So there was only 2 other Black people in the whole province,
Okay, so eventually you got into music. I mean, we're going to go all over the place, but you got into music. I got to know how that happened. Things that are popular in Canada aren't necessarily the same things that are popular here in America. But so what were you listening to when you were growing up?
Well, my dad used to collect a lot of records, right? So in my household, we had like Nana Mouskouri, Santana, old Calypso. We had like Donny Hathaway, Simon and Garfunkel, Neil Diamond, Parliament, like all that stuff, like reggae. When breakdancing kind of came up, my brother started DJing. And he started collecting like a lot of hip hop records, Nucleus, Jam on It, and all the early hip hop records, Run DMC.
Is he older than you?
Yeah, he's older than me. So I used to go through when he was gone. I would go through the records and check them and listen to my dad's music. And I just was really obsessed with music, man. I just really loved music. And so I just absorbed all of that stuff, And then I started just trying to do it. Like I told you, them cold Alberta winters, like you got 3 options. I was too young for a couple of them. So I dove into the music and the creativity side of things. And I just continued to do that, man. And then before long, I was making records and working in restaurants,
Okay, so which came first, restaurants or records?
It really was simultaneous, man. Around like 16, 17, I started working in restaurants. And then I would take all that money, like immediately. I would take all that money and go to like the music store, and we'd rent a bunch of equipment and set up studio in my basement for like 2-3 months. And then we would just record music, on like cassette 4 tracks and stuff like that. And then we got good at it and started doing shows around that. So I was always working in the restaurants and making the music. Those kind of birthed at the same time,
So was this the Maximum Definitive?
Yeah, that was the Maximum. Well, there was like different incarnations before that. I was a solo thing. Then I had like a duo and then a solo thing. And then it ended up being this Maximum Definitive thing,
How did you come up with MC Mystic?
One of the guys in the group, our dancer, called me that. He's like, you always come with these lyrics that's like out of here, like it's like you're a mystic. So he called me MC Mystic.
FYI, that through line of you having like just these dope ass mystical lyrics, that never stopped, by the way.
Oh,
That still
well,
continues to this very day.
bless, bless, sure,
You are sick.
bless.
Okay, so the Maximum Definitive. Now, you guys were actually nominated for a Juno Award, right?
Yeah, we were nominated for Juno. We won like all these Canadian Music Video Awards and a whole bunch of stuff.
For which song or songs?
We had this one song called Jungle Man that exploded. Like we sampled the meters and it just was crazy. And it was by chance that same record was sampled by Far Side passing me by around that time. The MTV in Canada was called Much Music. And so they would drop Far Side and then they would play our record right behind it because it had the same kind of vibe. So it ended up being in like heavy rotation and just this independent band out of Edmonton just kind of bogarted the Toronto industry, you know?
Without getting too specific, when something like that happens to an indie band who's really just a bunch of kids, again, not too specific, but was there money coming from that? Like, did you guys get paid? Like, because here, if you got on MTV back in the day, you never had to work again. So what was it like what was it like with, in Canada on Much Music with a bunch of kids who don't have a record label or really, I'm guessing, any legal person looking out on their behalf?
No, we
Do you guys get
literally
rich?
hand to hand were like making the cassettes at my partner's house on clear cassettes, handwriting labels and like selling them consignment to the record stores. And then it started to just kind of go, you know? But, we would get money from shows. We did like this campaign for like Sonic the Hedgehog. We did this campaign for like West Edmonton Mall. We did this campaign. Like, so we were doing some stuff like that. But by no means were we ready and able to retire for sure. Like I'm still out here. You see how out here I am, right? So,
Well, that's because you can't stop being creative. That's why you're still out here.
yeah.
Okay, so then you went to Bass to Bass.
Bass is bass.
Bass is Bass. I'm sorry.
This is good.
But then you guys won a Juno, right?
And that had transformed into that group. And then that group we put out this song Funkmobile that just exploded. And again, it was around the time of that Coolio Fantastic Voyage record. And so they would play Coolio's record and he was driving in a car around like LA. And our video was driving in an old car around Toronto. And the music and the energy of the feel of the song was very summer and open and up. So they would drop our song and Coolio's song back to back. And that thing just exploded, man, like everywhere. And again, it was just an independent band. But this time I had moved to Toronto and we bogarted the industry, and before long it was like bidding war for, labels across the border as well as in Canada trying to sign Bass is Bass. And we ended up signing with Polygram, Island A&M, and a label out of the US that had Buju Banton on the label and Richard Pryor catalog on the label and stuff like that.
The A in A&M Records, Herb Alpert, previous guest at the show.
Oh, that's cool. That's dope. Yeah.
That guy was sick.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys are amazing, right? Things are just popping off all over the place. Sky's the limit. Are you still working in restaurants while you're doing all of this amazing music?
By the time I'd come to Toronto, no, I was no longer working in restaurants at that time in Toronto. I'd come and then the bass just took off and, and then we're in like tour buses and touring with the Bare Naked Ladies and Crash Test Dummies and
Crash Test Dummies, lead singer, previous guest of the show.
oh, that's cool. Yeah. James Brown. You did James Brown too? No, you didn't.
No, that'd be amazing.
So we're doing stuff like that, traveling, doing tours, and that was like full time for almost a decade,
Are you touring all over the world or all over Canada, all over North America? Where are you touring?
North America.
Okay, so what is that like? I mean, you grow up in basically the Canada's version of the Midwest where there's not a whole lot to do. And now you're just nonstop seeing all these places. And I can't imagine you ever thought you'd go to all these places. What was that like growing up?
Well, when you're on tour like that, you don't really see places. You see the sound check, you see the venue, you see the hotel. You may see a restaurant if the record company wants to take you out. Then you see the highway. Like, that's it. Like, you do a show and you got a show the next day, like 4 hours down the road, So You don't really see that much. You get to meet a lot of people and interact with a lot of people, but you don't really get to, feel what is San Antonio, Texas really like. You know what I mean?
Got you. But at least you're stacking mad chips. Like since you can't see anything, you can't spend anything, right? So you just get off the road and you're rich now.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
Karen Silkwood had a purpose. She was headed to a crucial meeting that would blow the whistle on the billion-dollar nuclear corporation she worked for. Instead, she died in a concrete culvert on a dark, desolate stretch of highway just outside of Crescent, Oklahoma. To discredit her, authorities and the institution Karen sought to expose called her nothing more than an emotionally disturbed and sexually promiscuous drug abuser. But in her death, she became a martyr for feminism, environmentalism, and pro-labor movements. From the creators of Gone Cold, Texas True Crime comes Silkwood, a story that remains one of the most explosive conspiracies in 20th century America and became the inspiration for a critically acclaimed movie. Silkwood dives deep into 28-year-old whistleblower Karen Silkwood, her relentless fight for truth, and the chilling events that followed. Betrayal, danger, and a mysterious unsolved death that still haunts the nation 5 decades later. Seeking justice, Karen went up against a corporate Goliath and paid the ultimate price. With no known witnesses, what happened to Karen Silkwood on that cold November night? Was it an accident? Was she silenced for knowing too much? Or something far more sinister? In a world where profits are placed above safety, Silkwood takes you inside a gripping true tale of corporate greed, government cover-ups, and the deadly secrets inside a nuclear industry titan. Don't miss this eye-opening journey into one of the most powerful stories of our time. Find Silkwood on your favorite podcast platform and hit that subscribe button now. Some secrets are too dangerous to stay hidden.
Let's get back into it.
Okay, so when did you decide to go to culinary school and why?
By that time, Base we had dissolved that group, and I was doing a bunch of solo stuff, and people would ask me to help me score this film, or help me voice this thing, or do this song, or jump on this beat I'm releasing. And I was licensing music to the UK and different things like that, right? So I was doing that for a hot minute. And then I was trying to do deals in the record industry that you saw kind of like Master P doing,
Right.
ownership deals. And at that time, they controlled the game. They were not having it. So I was like, look, if I can't control my own creative destiny in this, all I really care about is the art in it, If I can't control my own creative destiny in it, then I'm going to make sure that I'm never beholden to the art from somebody else ever again. So I always loved cooking. So I went back, dived deep into culinary. I went to cooking school, and did all that thing. And since then, I've just been doing everything together,
Why culinary? Why not something else?
My whole motivation is always I wanted to connect people and to find ways to bridge the gaps to connect people. And I know growing up in my household, because I'm now third generation food and beverage person in my family, from my grandfather to my father to now me, and now my niece is involved in the industry. So it was always around. My dad had a restaurant, and I was around and kind of know and understand what it was about. And I loved it. And I just saw what food did to connect people. So I was like, yo, I'm going to do that. And I was naturally talented with it and just being around it so much, So I went in and just went hard, man. And boom, still out here.
First time that you came across my radar, we were huge Food Network household, all day, every day. Food. If you would just turn my TV on, it was on Food Network, no matter what.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, either Food Network made an agreement or maybe bought the cooking channel or something like that. And then you popped up.
They launched it. Yeah.
So then you pop up on Everyday Exotic. And my wife and I were like, what is this shit? It didn't look like any of the other shows that were on the Food Network. It didn't sound like any other shows. And it didn't have the personality of the other shows. So You said they launched it, but there was a few shows that came out kind of all at the same time, and you were one of them, but yours stood like head and shoulders above the rest of them. We watched Everyday Exotic like you read about. One of the reasons that I reached out to you in the first place is because, and you don't remember this and you shouldn't, but I reached out to you years ago to get you on the show, mostly because I love the theme song for Everyday Exotic, which is You Me Us, which listeners, it's spelled Meus. For a cooking show that, for all intents and purposes, is a stand and stir type of show, they don't start off with a beat that just makes you want to not stand still. I mean, that song makes you want to dance. And then you're just like, oh, no, I'm supposed to just stand here and stir things. So I love that song so, so much.
Thanks.
Will you tell me the inspiration behind that song and then how you were able to make that the theme song for that was your first cooking show, right?
Yeah, well, that show actually started because Food Network in Canada had come to me to do a show. And so we did this show in Canada, Everyday Exotic. Then we started selling it around the world, and we sold it to like 40 countries around the world.
The show?
Yeah. And then America bought it for Cooking Channel. So when you saw it,
it was old as shit.
Well, it was a couple of years old. Not old as shit. It was like only a couple years old. Canada had the first rights to it, and then we started selling it aggressively immediately, and people loved it, right? So by the time you saw it, it had that feel. But the song itself, I wrote that whole album. That's part of an album called Soul Food, and that basically is around the time I met my wife. It's like that whole album is basically me meeting my wife and falling in love. That's what that song is, just the butterfly-y, happy feeling of you, me, and us,
Part of that song talks about going on a discovery, right? Like discovering different things. And kind of that's what I feel like the song is about. It's just discovering different things and new things. But, with you and me, and now we're us, and we're going to go on this adventure. And I feel like that's what the show was about. It was taking the viewer on an adventure to discover things that we would not have normally seen. Like I'm from San Antonio. We don't have a whole lot of, West Indian spices or whatever, like just sort of the different things that you took us through. We didn't really have that. So it was kind of unique. And that was one of the reasons that I love the show. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons that it sold to all these countries and was a huge hit. How did you come to be a TV star? Like you're working in a restaurant, but then how do you make that jump to, oh, okay, well then let's do this show? How's that happen?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was very reluctant about it. Like, I had done so much with music and like won all these awards, done all this crazy shit with music for like 10, 15 years by that point, right? I said I never want to be famous for nothing ever again.
For anything.
For anything. I wanted just a simple, anonymous life. I wanted to just go cook and go home and sleep with my wife. Because simple life is beautiful, my brother. It's a beautiful thing. People underestimate how beautiful it is. But anyways, the Food Network had come to me. I was running this restaurant that happened to be around the corner from where they were launching Food Network in Canada at that time. That was a hot minute ago, right? They would come in all the time because they're working a lot. And I got to know the people, and I didn't know for a year. I just knew them as like Tanya and Holly. I didn't know what they did. I never asked people what they do for their jobs and stuff, right? So I never knew what they did. And so after about a year, they're like, yo, we love your food. We're here all the time. Are you interested in being on the Food Network? We work at the Food Network. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, I like you two. Y'all are cool, but like, I'm not really that interested. But out of courtesy to them, they had me do this audition. And so I did this audition. I tried to sabotage it. They still liked it. And then next thing you know, they're offering me shows, and I'm like, yo, but that's a really bad idea for a show. I can't do that show. Like,
oh, so they were pitching you ideas for shows.
Yeah, and then they pitched me another show, and I'm like, yo, that's a really bad idea as well. I can't put my face on that. So then they stopped calling, and then I opened this kind of splashy restaurant in Toronto that got a lot of acclaim. And they were in the dining room one day again, and by that time, like, we were having our first kid, me and my wife. And then you're like, okay, shit, I need to worry about money finally, right? So then I'm like, okay, let's build this empire, So they just happened to be in the restaurant at the time that my mindset had shifted a little bit, and we reconnected. And next thing you know, a couple of years later, we launched Everyday Exotic.
What was the name of that restaurant that you said was a little splashy?
It was this restaurant on King Street in Toronto called Cultura we opened. And the first day we opened was the film festival and Vince Vaughn. We threw a party for Vince Vaughn.
The
And
Toronto Film Festival?
yeah, and the first day we opened was Vince Vaughn coming out of the restaurant on Hello Magazine or one of these tabloid magazines. It was the front cover of the magazine outside of our restaurant. He got caught cheating or something. I don't know what it was. Anyways, after that, everybody was trying to go to that restaurant, you know?
So that was also just a coincidence?
No, I mean, I didn't set that up if that's what you're getting at.
That is what I'm getting at. Okay, so coincidentally, Food Network is filming around the corner from where you are. And then if coincidentally there's some shot of Vince Vaughn outside your restaurant, dude, the universe is in love with you, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. What can I say?
Oh, this is a huge ask.
Yeah.
Do you own all your music?
Yes, sir. Masters, mostly publishing.
All right. Can I play You, Me, Yes right here?
Yeah, of course, my brother. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Hey.
Would you introduce it like you're a radio DJ? I don't know if they do that differently in Canada, but will you do that? Will you do a radio DJ intro of this song?
Coming up right now on Fascination Street FM, Roger Mooking, You, Me, Us.
Oh my God, I love that. Thank you.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
You and me and us. That's what it's about. Giving into the feeling that you've given me is simply too good to be true. This heavenly as hell. Thinking about you and me without us, they doubt us, but this life ain't all about us. In fact, when I've sapped all my energy and enmity, the look on your face is life force sent to me. And to me, I'm stuck on you mentally. It's meant to be, darling. That's all it's meant to be. When you come along with me, it's only good for us. Let's go on a journey, never lonely when we're just. Tell me how I love you, me, you. How I love you, me, yes. And we should never worry about the things that separate us. You remember that night? I remember that night. I won't forget, see. Stars shine like a torch from the back porch. Remember that night like it was last night. Just when it passed like when we made sparks. Caught gambling like we were loan sharks. Slipping and glistening, no one is listening. Turning and twisting like babies at a christening. I hear them sisyphus sound like a whisper when I feel a brush on my neck, my spine take a left. When you come along with me, it's only good for us. Let's go on a journey, never lonely when we're just. Tell me how I love you, me, yes. How I love you, me, yes. And we should never worry about the things that separate us. Every day it's gotta be fine. When it's just us and loving is blind. Every day it's gotta be fine. When it's just us and loving is blind. It's when you sing your sugar this way. It's when I start running away. Running away. Ha! When you come along with me, it's only good for us. Let's go on a journey, never lonely when we're just. Me, how I love you, me, yes. How I love you, me, yes. How I love you, me, yes. And we should never worry about the things that separate us.
I love that song so much, dude.
Oh, thanks, though.
So then, boom, you're in the restaurant business and you're a TV star. How hard was it to do both? Or did you do both?
Well, it's interesting because I also dropped a record. So when we dropped Everyday Exotic at first, I had just opened the restaurant about a year or so, maybe a year or two. And I dropped the Everyday Exotic along with my album Soul Food. So all this stuff simultaneously, just bam, 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 bam. What is it like? I don't know. I always did that, man. I always had 10 jobs, doing a million different things, super ADD, trying to make stuff, creative. Like, this is just how I am, man.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
Hello, everyone. My name is Barbara Foqueires. I am launching my new podcast. The title is Get Inspired with Dr. Barb. I will be inviting guests who are doing something really cool, innovative in education in their classrooms, and they are willing to share some innovative ideas because education needs some serious changes to make it much better for our children who have some serious needs. Also, I would like to give some light to certain innovative platforms that are also trying to improve education. And I invite you to visit my podcast and to share it with anyone you know who cares about education. It doesn't have to be only teachers and parents. Get inspired with Dr. Barb. Thank you so much.
Let's get back into it.
Okay, so you have all these jobs that are really big and I would assume very time consuming, especially since you're so detail oriented and you like to be hands on with everything.
How you know that? How you know that?
I've listened to a lot of interviews about you, my man.
Oh, okay.
A lot. You have your hands on everything. How do you be a dad? How do you raise a kid? How do you be a husband? Like how, where do you find the time?
I don't believe in time.
Oh, we're going to get to that. And we're going to get to that right now. Time is not linear for you.
No, it's not linear for anybody.
Okay. You got me there. When did you discover that?
I'll tell you how I really started to come to this notion is through recording music. Music baffles me. I've been making music for over 3 decades. As a writer, producer, performer, I've been on every angle of the creation side of making music, right? Mixing, like the whole thing. The more I make it and spend time doing it, the more baffled I am by it, actually. And what I think is interesting that I learned about time about music is I can manipulate time through music, right? So for instance, on the latest album, Soundbites, there's a song called Fearless. That song is, as much as it about being fearless, is it about the perception of manipulating time? Because if you listen to the chorus versus the verses, the feel is completely different. And it feels like the tempo is changing, but the tempo is exactly the same, but it feels so dramatically different that you believe that it has to have a different tempo to it, right? So that was kind of like manipulating the feeling of time. But from years ago, I was always kind of enamored with the thought that, I may have a drummer who records on January 13th at 2 p.m. He does a take that we keep. And then I have a sax player that comes in on April 2nd at 2 a.m. in the morning and records their thing. And then I come in and spend a few hours recording vocals in, a month after that. And so you have this collage of different times that exist on this master recording that now the listener listens to in their own time on demand. So my brother, I've been manipulating time for a long time. So it made me think, like, where is the real timestamp? Is it when you're listening? Is it the drummer's timestamp? Is it the saxophone's timestamp? Is it my timestamp? Is it a combination and an aggregate of all these things? Because they exist on a master. At that time, it was 2-inch reel. They exist on a master tape somewhere, compressing all of these different times into one time. And they actually have like a time code on that, right? So I just thought how obtuse this whole notion of time was. And then I started reading like, Egyptology and quantum physics and like different things. And, they started to corroborate some of my thoughts and notions about the conundrums around the time-space continuum,
Now you do that with time, but you also do that with food. I know that's a little bit of a switch, but
no, it's true.
I just want to make the point, like at your restaurant Twist in Toronto Airport, you have a dish. It's a fried chicken, but it's called Twist. So there's a little bit of a twist on this fried chicken, and that it has multiple different parts, right? And so when it comes to the table, there's the chicken, which is not like any other fried chicken. It's got all these different spices and all this crazy shit. And then there's this lime honey
mayo, yeah.
Lime, honey mayo, and then there's this basil, this fried basil, right? So the reason that I'm bringing that up is because, like you said, there's all these different time signatures. Well, there's also kind of a chef signature. And so the way you compose that in most of your dishes is that you're not even the final chef on that dish, right? It's the person who eats it, right? Like I get that plate, and then it's my job to dip the chicken in the lime honey mayo and then shatter the basil on top of it. So then that makes me the final chef of my dish. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm always trying to, I'm playful, right? So I always try and make everything interactive and immersive and experiential. So that allows it from a food perspective, the guest and the customer to be that participant, but also you can kind of manipulate your own bite and kind of build your own bite in that moment as well. So I'm always trying to do that and kind of showcase different cultures and techniques and methods because there's so many masters all over the globe, showcasing mastery. Just because we're in North America doesn't mean we have to only showcase North American mastery.
Indeed. You are playful, and you use the word interactive, which is going to make us shift yet again in this weird space-time continuum. We're going to switch to the interactive part of your book, Curious Sounds, which goes along with your album, Soundbites. So tell me about the interactive aspect of both of these things, and extra points if you include Francesca Akuwase in this conversation.
Yeah, no, it's cool. So the book Curious Sounds is kind of like a living testament, a physical walking testament of the art gallery exhibit that's now at the Art Gallery of Hamilton. And so that's really an immersive, interactive experience. So unbeknownst to a lot of people, I guess not so unbeknownst, but I've been making like visual art and photography and painting acrylics and all kinds of stuff for over a decade, just by myself. I swore I would never put it out. But here we are. I did this art gallery exhibit. And so it's interactive in that there's a music component to it. At the beginning, there's a QR code that connects to the album Soundbites. And you listen to the album Soundbites while you look at the visuals on the wall. But they're interactive in that, when you go to art gallery, the white cube art galleries, I always want to touch the art. But, you're not allowed to touch the art. So I made an exhibit where you could touch the art. So then you can lift the acrylic. There's like a handle. And you lift it up, and then when you lift it, it reveals a story, a micro story, a very short form story, maximum 100-word count that is kind of very tangential, kind of seemingly nebulous and unconnected to the music and unconnected to the visuals, but everything is very intimately connected. So it's 19 songs on the Soundbites album and has 19 visuals and 19 stories. And as you go through the art gallery exhibit or the Curious Sound books, it's this immersive, interactive experience, And so Curious Sounds adds on a layer where we bring in Francesca Ekwayasi, this incredible writer. And she's kind of contextualized a lot of the craft making that we did around, making the art, the music and all that stuff, but also both of our journeys into creativity, what that means to us, what's that like, how we got into it. And then at the end of the book, there's all the song lyrics in the Soundbites album, and then all of the visuals and the stories that accompany the music. And in the book, there's a QR code that exists as well that drives you to the album, so you can do that whole experience in your hand as well,
Now, the album Soundbites, you said it has 19 tracks?
Yeah, 19.
It's going to sound like a dumb question, but I'm going somewhere with it. 19 tracks? How long is this album?
I think the total running time, what is it, like 36 minutes or something like that? Like 29 minutes, it's a short album.
It's very short. So in 2019, you had a memo in your phone that said what?
Said Soundbites, no song longer than 1 minute and 30 seconds.
And why did you come up with that? Why is that note in your phone from 6 years ago now?
Because, while I've been playing with time and considering the fallacy of it, I was obsessed with that idea. And so I ran into this study that Microsoft did in 2015 that said the average attention span of the human was 8 seconds, which was less than that of a goldfish. That was 2015. Now, 10 years later, we're down to 0-second TikToks, right? So I don't know where we are statistically with that, but it's clearly pretty low. So as a creative person who's like, severely attention deficit, how do I do something that interests me? Because I'm also living in the world and my attention's gone down for sure. How does somebody who is interested in that create something for other people who are out in the world equally as attention deficit? I wanted to make something really experiential and really interactive and play on this notion of compressed time with the maximum, 1 minute and 30 song, like the shortest is 8 seconds, right? And still have like the feeling of a full song with like a verse and a chorus, a little bit of a setup and a transition and in and out of emotions and diving into the next emotion with the next song and making it feel like a journey and doing all of that thing across the breadth of an album. That's really what the whole thing was about, man, is trying to create this whole world, immersing the listener, viewer, reader inside of this world that I created,
I was checking out that album. Like you said, it's not very long. So I listened to it like quite a few times. Like before I knew it was over, I was like, well, shit, I got to start that over and over and over and over.
Yeah. And then the bell rings again. Ding. It's like ding.
And exactly. It's a really good album to put on repeat because it's so different. Every song is different than the last. Every track, I should say, is different than the last. And then the whole of it is something completely different every time you listen to it. So I really like that. I recommend everybody should do it. I know that you have 4 kids, and I'm not going to ask you which one of them is your favorite, but I am going to ask you which song on this album is your favorite.
Can I pick a favorite from each section?
That'd be amazing. Do it.
So there's 3 movements in the album, right? It takes you through the journey of life. The first movement is called The Learning, which is from conception to adolescence. The middle section is the living, which takes you from adolescence through adulthood. And then there's the leaving, which takes you from adulthood through the end of life. So in the first movement, I would say my favorite is Pretty Penny. It's a song kind of like discovering the injustices of the world. And, you're kind of taking that in.
Do you see on this piece of paper? You can't read it. It says Pretty Penny. That's my favorite song on this album.
Oh, wow. Crazy. Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Then like The City is a powerful kind of thing for me as well, because it really engulfs you and gives you that feeling and the sense of being in the meat and potatoes of your life, the real heart, kaleidoscopic part of your life, And then in the last movement, I would say Imagine That would be my favorite in that movement towards the end there.
I love it. That is a great explanation. I love the themes of learning, living, and leaving.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting way to break up an album, and it works.
Yeah. Thank you.
Like I said, Pretty Penny is my favorite.
Why you like that one? Why you like that one?
Because it tells a story that slaps you in the face. That particular song.
You weren't expecting it?
I wasn't at all, because from the very beginning of the song, like this kid just finds a penny. But then the story of this penny, or whatever the coin is, it might be a loony or a toonie. I have no idea.
It's a penny. The penny.
It's an actual penny. Okay. So the story of this penny, the inquisitive nature of the kid who finds this penny to find out why this person is on the penny. And then it just tells a story that I wasn't expecting. Is really, that song is sick.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And since we have thoroughly confused the listeners about what the hell I'm talking about, because I did a terrible job of explaining it, I know I asked earlier about Yumiya's, but can I play Pretty Penny?
Yeah, please play Pretty.
Fascination Street Podcast. Roger Mooking, Pretty Penny from their highly acclaimed album and visual installation, Soundbites.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. You're a rock star, dude.
She was a pretty penny. In a faraway land in a time that's past, there was a little boy with a curious mind. He was out one day with his friends when they passed. The penny so pretty with spectacular shine. It was oh so special, so his little hand reached down and picked that penny up. It was heavy for size. Brushed the dirt off and he saw it was gold, with a lady and a crown on one of his sides. He thought to himself, wow, this lady gets a crown and my mama can't buy shoes. His friends didn't know, so they thought they would try to figure out the story of this lady, the muse. Ask all the grown folks what they knew of this old gold lady, but confusing things began to unfold. Granny loved her, others said it's complicated, no doubt. So they hit the library just to figure it out. Turns out the riches came, sending gangs of thugs to kill, rape, mutilate, separate, hate, murder, sell, burn down, shit, behead, and slaughter. The best part, she said religion blessed the torture. So many people, they were garbage, and that happened for so many generations, they thought it was fact. While kicking them, she threw all this stuff in the back of boats and golden chariots. Then she thought she would rope in a few other rich people to develop the scheme. Got richer selling diamonds, gold souls between. They robbed another, and a sister and a brother. Even made sneaky laws just to do it undercover. So now the little boy is torn with his grace. Does he carry on but with shame on his face? So the boy with the smarts took the coin to his mother and said, "This is for you, mama. You earned it."
Remember, we're bouncing all over the place. You worked in a bunch of kitchens all over the place. And I heard you tell a story a long time ago. This might have been like 12, 15 years ago, something like that. You told a story about how working in kitchens under a couple of different masters kind of showed you that the rules that are hard and fast and true are not always hard and fast and true. So can you tell me a little bit about what that means and how you learned it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure, man. I was working in a French restaurant with this French chef, and he was kind of walking through stock, right? So how do you mix the bones, the thing, add the mirepoix, blah, 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 skim it, don't let it boil, make sure it's tender, very low simmer, so you get a nice clear broth, strain it, cool it, skim the fat, you get a nice clear broth, right? This is how you make a chicken stock, right? Okay, cool. This is the hard and fast way. Tried and true, don't break these XY rules. Then I go work with this Japanese and Chinese master, and he's like, take that stock over there, throw these bones, rinse them, and then roll boil for like hours. And I'm like, whoa, what the hell is this guy telling me to do? Right? And, there's different kinds of stocks, of course, et cetera. Sometimes they want a clear broth as well for certain things, but it totally broke everything I had learned up until that point about making stocks. And so I was like, oh, snap. And there's justification. When you boil it like that, the collagen breaks down, the fat breaks down. And then when it rolls like that, it emulsifies and makes a really creamy broth without having to add any dairy to it, basically. Very silky, smooth, and creamy, and it stays like that, right? So there's a purpose for that. So it really opened my mind to, I got X tenured professional telling me this, and I got Y tenured professional telling me this. Clearly, they both know what they're doing. And there's different objectives. So really, it comes down to, what are you trying to achieve at the end, right? So I just took the inspiration to just focus on what I'm trying to achieve at the end and realized that there are just so many multiple methods and ways of achieving that. And so I just dove deep into that, man. I just dove really deep into that idea and that practice, and always trying to find, okay, so if tomato sauce in Italy is done this way, how do they do it in Persian countries? Okay, what's the difference? Why? X, Y, Z. It's the same tomatoes, pretty much, So I'm just so curious. I'm just curious about life, man.
So you took that lesson and you applied it to other things that you do. Like, for instance, this book.
Everything. Everything.
That seems like one of the most foundational lessons that you could possibly have learned in your whole life.
Yeah.
How long did it take you for it to snap that, oh, this doesn't just apply to food, this applies to everything? Like, when did that set in for you?
It was the moment when I realized this guy was trying to teach me to roll the stock. In that moment, I'm like, wow, this just broke everything. Because, I came from the music industry as well, too, right? And the music industry was very established with very set systems. It's not as volatile as we see it now, and everything is changing so quickly all the time. It was very established. So there was kind of a framework, even though I'm on the creative side, there was a framework of how to operate in the industry. You just accept the built world as you're coming up for, that's the way the built world is. But, somebody built that world. So you can just rebuild that world. So this guy with the rolling stock blew my mind. And I'm like, oh, so I could just come up with what I want to do and then work backwards and figure out different ways to build it. Even if they're not established ways, I can come up with a new way. And as long as I'm not killing nobody, hurting nobody, I can actually do that. So I've been doing that ever since, man.
And in every way possible. Tell me about the 13-acre property called Rockland's Market.
Yeah, so that was the thing I always wanted to do. I was traveling on the road like 200 days a year for a dozen years, like it's a lot. I got 4 kids and it's a lot. So I wanted to build something where people came to me And so I built this barbecue playground. It's kind of like Disney barbecue playground meets retreat center, meets retreat space, calm, peaceful thing. I found this land 2 hours north of Toronto and just built this world up there, you know? So it's got this different barbecues, custom things that I built from salvage materials. We do retreats for kids from underserviced communities and many communities, actually. Financial literacy retreats, culinary retreats, wellness retreats, yoga retreats, all kinds of stuff. And I also film shows up there. I film like my Breaking Bread show with on Amazon Live and Prime up there called Breaking Bread with Roger Mooking. I film like a bunch of other stuff that I do up there. I'm the ambassador for the county up there. So we film and I produce a lot of stuff for the county up there with that. Yeah, it's just like a really dynamic, creative space where I can build community and bring people together, man. That's my mission, modus operandi.
I heard you say a long time ago that two of the most important things that a child needs to learn before they go out on their own is how to cook for themselves and how to balance their own money. And so you're teaching financial literacy and cooking skills at this retreat?
Yeah, well, we build retreats and I bring in professionals and expertise. So I run the culinary piece of that day, but then we bring in financial facilitators who are experts in that speak to the communities that we're speaking to directly, you know, in each case. And then we have lead facilitators who kind of generally run the thing. So we're building and creating whole full day and multi-day activations with the appropriate, I hesitate to use the word experts because nobody really an expert, but right. People who have acumen in a specific topic like that to kind of bring in the best that we can to speak to communities and to kind of, share this information, man. And also just to bring people in a room, how many times I do these retreats, like we did these retreats for emerging artists last year, and there are a bunch of musicians. We did some for some visual artists and we did some for writers as well. And at the end, they would get back on the bus and to head back home. And then I'd see them on their Instagram, like 3 hours later, they're all hanging out at a restaurant, So now it's like we brought these people from, a specific area, but they've never met each other, brought them up north and had this very special day. And then they leave and they still hanging out. And then you see them doing like little shows and showcases together and different things like that. So, I'm just trying to connect people, bro. Like at the end of the day, I think more than ever, we need to find ways to bring people together in really positive, loving ways. And so I'm just trying to create that environment in any way possible.
Look at you building communities. Well done.
Well, I think that's, like if I'm out here just doing this, making money, like what's the point? Like who cares? Nobody cares. Right?
Yeah, because that you don't take the money with you, but those communities get to live on long after you're gone. That's cool.
Exactly, my brother. And they hopefully will get inspired to build community in there when their time comes. You know what I mean? Like
that's the hope. That's the dream.
That's the dream. I mean, that's the dream, my brother. This is how I'm built. So
you're in the Barbecue Hall of Fame?
I've been nominated 3 times for the American Royale Barbecue Hall of Fame, but I have been inducted into the Black Barbecue Hall of Fame.
Where is that? The Black Barbecue Hall of Fame. Is it in America?
In the South. I can't remember where. Yeah, it's America. It's in America, yeah.
Okay, wow. So is there an actual place? Like I know the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has a building.
There's a place, there's a plaque. Yeah, there's a thing. Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah, it's cool. That is really cool, dog.
That's rad as hell.
It's really cool.
You did a thing, I don't know if you still do, it'd be really cool if you did, but you did a thing a while back with your children and your wife where you would go to the grocery store and you would get one new thing that you had never bought before. And then you would go home, and this was every week you would do this, and you would go home and then you would cook it or use it in your cooking or whatever. And that would kind of help show your kids, and I guess you, some parts of the cuisine of the world that you were maybe unfamiliar with or they were unfamiliar with. Where did you get the inspiration to do that? And do you still?
We still do that. Yeah. My eldest is 17 years old. And so we've been doing that 17 times 52 weeks. So we still doing that. What is that? I'm just curious. I want to learn and I want my kids and our family to learn together, So there's some things that I may know that I bring in the house that I show them, or one of my younger daughters might go to the grocery and she's like, yo, can we pick that one up? I'm like, yeah, let's check it out. Just check it out. I've never seen it, and then figure out, we learn about it. And, 17 times 52, you start to learn a lot of things. You know what I mean? Like, and you also, like, food is a great gateway to culture and history, right? So you start to see, okay, what is this argan oil? How is this made? Where does it come from? What's the history of this? Like, why did they use it? And then you start to see all these different uses for all these different things, medical practice with things, and how that plays out in society. And it just really opens a very colloquial way to understand other culture, other people, and other things in the world through just simple ingredients, And then you get to eat it and try new shit. Like, you can't lose.
One of the things about argon, you can't eat it, but there's also argon gas. And argon gas, so the windows in your home, they're a double pane window, right? Which means it's two pieces of glass. Well, in between that glass is argon gas. And the reason that's there is because when it's cold outside and warm inside, if that's not there, then the windows will fog up and vice versa. So argon, just like you said, like, it gets you to learn more about not just the people and the places, but also the things that are all around us. And who doesn't want to learn more shit? Dude, you're amazing.
Actually, there's a lot of people who don't want to learn more shit. Let's just be honest. Right?
Well, they're not listening, so it's fine.
I'm not one of those people.
That is kick-ass. Everybody, go check out Roger. Is there a website? Is it rogermooking.com?
Yeah, rogermooking.com, my brother.
And that's where you can find everything. You can find the music, the book, the art.
All my social medias at Roger Mooking on all of them. So you can go check that as well. So it's all that.
Are you still doing Heat Seekers with Aaron Sanchez?
No, we stopped doing that years ago. Before Man Fire Food. But funnily enough, I just talked to him last week. Just kicking it last week.
Oh, nice. He did a thing in San Antonio. This is many, many years ago. Bobby Flay was doing this thing, which I get that it's a cool TV idea, but it's a little bit conceited in the idea. So he comes to your town and he finds out what your best dish is, and then he kicks your ass at it. Okay, so I don't remember what that thing was. I think it was called Beat Bobby Flay, but it was before it was in the stadium or whatever. So
yeah.
He came to San Antonio to make, it might have even been a puffy taco. So Aaron Sanchez came to help the restaurant owner beat Bobby Flay.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
And this is terrible, so I'm going to cut this part out, but...
Holy crap. Jesus Lord.
Anyway, that's a little Aaron Sanchez trivia for only you, because I'm cutting that out.
Crazy story.
That is so nuts. Everybody, go check out everything Roger Mooking at rogermooking.com. The books, the art, the music. The next time you're in Toronto, which, by the way, is a direct flight from San Antonio International Airport to Toronto.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Go to Twist. If you can find a seat, go get in there, because there's like 500,000 people that go through that place every day or whatever, the airport.
You do 500 a day. 500 a day.
Take it easy, bro. I'm just talking about the whole airport.
Oh, the whole airport. Okay, where? Yeah.
So you get in there and enjoy yourself. Also, be sure to check out all of the TV shows wherever you can find them. They're streaming somewhere all the time. And like he mentioned earlier, Breaking Bread with Roger Mooking on Amazon Prime. Go find them shits too. Go find everything Roger, especially his new album. It is called Sound Bites. It has an accompanying book called Curious Sounds. Check those two out together because they work in tandem. And oh my God, Roger, I can't thank you enough for taking the time. I have been a fan of yours for, well, over a decade. We're going on 14, 15 years now. I've been in love with you. And so is my wife. So take it easy, bro.
Thanks.
Before I let you go, Roger, is there anything that I didn't ask you or we didn't talk about specifically that you wanted to talk about today? Did we cover the big bits?
Yeah, no, it's all good, man. It's all good. You did your thing, man. Bless, Steve. I appreciate you.
Dude, you are amazing. You should open a restaurant or something. You should just call yourself the octopus because you have so many hands doing all these different things all at the same time. You are a badass. Don't ever stop being creative and just showing all the love, because deep down in your creativity, it's not even deep down. It's pretty surface level, actually, is the love. Like, you have a love for people, you have a love for things, and you have a love for sharing, which that's the sickest shit. You don't find that a lot these days. So never stop doing that and never stop being an inspiration. I'm going to let you go now. You're amazing. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, dude. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. You have a great day, okay? Bless.
And right back at you, my friend. Take it easy, buddy. Bye.
Say hi to your wife.
Oh, how dare you? Bye, buddy. Opening music is the song FSP Theme, written, performed, and provided by Ambush Vin. Closing music is from the song Say My Name off the 2021 album Underdog Anthems, used with permission from Jack's Hollow. If you like the show, tell a friend. Subscribe and rate and review the show on iTunes and wherever else you download podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the episodes are available there as well. Check me out on Vero at Fascination Street Pod and TikTok at Fascination Street Pod. And again, thanks for listening.